Hi guys, Olive here today to talk to you about the books that I will probably never read. This was originally a tag video created by the lovely Marissa over at Little Spider 9. She made up some really great questions for this tag, but I found that the books that I will probably never read didn't really fit into the questions that she created. So instead of answering her specific tag questions, I'm just going to give you a list of books that I will probably never read. As is customary for booktubers to say at the beginnings of these types of videos, I may be speaking somewhat negatively about a book that you may enjoy. If you do not want to see a video like that, then perhaps this is not the video for you. But given that I try my absolute best to be an open-minded person, you may be able to convince me that I might want to read one of these books. So hey, you might want to stick around. The first book that I will likely never pick up is A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. This one really made the booktube rounds a few years back. I remember the year it came out, it was on basically every award list. Everyone was talking about it. Everyone was reading it. And I originally thought it might be something I would be interested in reading because the premise sounded as though it had a similar group dynamic to that of The Interestings by Meg Wolitzer, which is one of my favorite books of all time. But as I started hearing more about this book, I discovered that a lot of people were saying that it was really gratuitously violent to the point of being really unrealistic, the amount of abuse that the main character Jude has to go through. Fun fact, one of my favorite booktube videos of all time is the review that Mercedes of Mercy's Bookish Musings did of A Little Life. In her review, she eviscerates the plot of this novel and calls it out for being extremely gratuitous and hyperbolic. Other things that I had been hearing about A Little Life definitely had me leaning toward not wanting to read the book, but then finally seeing her review was the last straw. I knew I definitely didn't want to read it. I know a lot of people who read this book ended up really loving it because of the emotional connection that they had with the story and with the characters. But I know myself as a reader, and if a book is supposed to take place in our worlds, then the events that happen within it need to be things that can actually happen in our real world. One of the things that Mercedes really drives home in her review of A Little Life is just how unrealistic it is that one person would be abused by just about every single person he comes in contact with in his entire lifespan. And while I understand that this book was meant to be a very strong statement about abuse, there's just no way that I could go through that novel believing that this character would have undergone that amount of abuse. And it would be extremely hard for me to read through this book knowing that the author is putting a character through this to get to me, the reader, and try to make me have an emotional reaction. Given that I am the type of person who leads with logic and not emotion, I see right through these attempts, and it makes me really upset with the author. So given the long list of issues that I already have with this book, despite never having even picked it up yet, I think it's pretty safe to say I'm never going to pick up this book. It is also very likely that I will never be picking up any books by William Faulkner. I had a very traumatic experience back in high school attempting to read The Sound and the Fury, and ever since then, I have been just put off by any book by William Faulkner. But this one I do feel a little bit more open about than I do about A Little Life, which I really, really do not want to read. But I feel as though the bad experience I had with The Sound and the Fury is coloring every other book in his catalog, and I realize that that's probably not fair. So if you think, knowing my reading taste, there are any books by William Faulkner that I would click with to get me out of this impression that his books aren't for me, please let me know in the comment section below. Another book that really seems like it's not for me is American Gods by Neil Gaiman. I have still yet to read anything by Neil Gaiman. There are a few of his books, such as Neverwhere and Stardust, that I am really interested in picking up, but it really feels as though American Gods is just not going to be my cup of tea. I'm not the biggest reader of things relating to mythology. I don't mind it, but it's not really something I seek out. And when my husband read it a few years ago, he would read me certain passages that felt a little bit too He-Man, and I'm just not really here for that. This one does seem as though it could be one that I change my mind about at some vague point in the future after I have read a few other of Neil Gaiman's books, but for right now, I am cool with it not being on my TBR. Another book that has never made it onto my TBR is The Vegetarian by Han Kang. I know this is another one that everyone was talking about there for a time on BookTube as well, but it's just never something that sounded interesting to me. It is my understanding that this book is about a woman who has a very vivid nightmare, which inspires her to become a vegetarian, which is looked down upon in South Korea, and it has very traumatic consequences on her family. I have heard that this book is bizarre and also violent, and while I don't shy away from books that include violence or are darker in tone, I tend to not like things that are bizarre or dreamlike in that they have that magical realism, things don't really make sense vibe to them. As soon as you start getting into themes that are weird or abstract or difficult to comprehend, where I'm not sure what's happening from page to page because it doesn't reflect the real worlds, then I'm just really no longer interested. You could call that a limitation of me as a reader, and I would agree with you, but it's there. So The Vegetarian and books like it are not going to be ones that I pick up. All the reviews I heard about this next book ended up being what finally put me off from wanting to read it, and that is My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferrante. As many people as I've heard say that they love this novel and the entire series, I have heard an equal number of people say that they absolutely hated it. In the first place, I am not the biggest fan of book series. I infinitely prefer standalone novels. I like the entire story to be in one book. But I have also heard people say that this book series can be really, really boring. While I definitely enjoy a slower paced novel from time to time, I definitely don't want to be picking up anything that I know going in is going to bore me, and the divisive reviews on this just really have me on the fence. Stemming off of my comment about really not enjoying reading book series, I also have been very, very reluctant to pick up anything by Robin Hobb. I know that she is universally beloved here on BookTube, so I understand that people probably won't enjoy hearing me say that I don't want to pick up any of her books, but it is less about the fact that I don't think I will enjoy them and more about the fact that I really don't like reading series, and every single book in each of her book series are bricks of novels. I tend to be a little bit commitment phobic when it comes to the media that I'm consuming. I'm the type of person who will watch episode after episode of a TV series, but won't sit down to watch a full-length movie because I feel like I have more of a choice to stop whenever I want to with the TV show versus I need to make sure I have at least an hour and a half to 2.5 hours to watch an entire movie. I feel like that's what's causing my hesitation with picking up any of Robin Hobb's novels. All of them have these interconnected worlds, and I know as soon as I pick up one, I'm going to want to read all of them, and I'm going to want to read them immediately because I need to know what happens. But since I like my TBRs to be so varied and diverse in the types of books that I'm picking, I fear that all of my reading would just become consumed by blowing through all of Robin Hobb's books, and I really don't want that to happen. So for now, at least, I'm keeping my distance. The penultimate book that I would like to talk to you about in this video that I will probably never read is The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt. You may have heard me talk previously about my feelings toward The Secret History, which is another pretty universally beloved book here on BookTube. I had a lot of problems with that book. I thought it was entirely too long. The characters were really obnoxious. I didn't think there was anything to them. I did love the atmosphere and the campus setting of that book. I enjoy other books like it, but the redeeming factors that I found in The Secret History, I don't think I'm going to find in The Goldfinch, and since I thought The Secret History was in such desperate need of an editor, The Goldfinch is even longer, so I have a feeling I'm going to have similar feelings. If I'm going to dedicate the time it takes to read a gigantic novel like The Goldfinch, I want to be pretty sure that I'm going to love it, and I do not have that certainty about The Goldfinch. And the last book that I will probably never be picking up is 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. As I said earlier in the video, I don't click so well with magical realism. If something is a fantasy novel and I'm aware of that going in, that's fine. But if little tiny magical things happen in a world that is recognizable as our own, I have a harder time with it because I know that that's not something that could realistically happen. I did very much enjoy Like Water for Chocolate by Laura Esquivel, which definitely has magical realism elements. But I think the fact that that was a foodie type of novel really saved it for me. My husband actually read 100 Years of Solitude a few years back and really enjoyed it. And since he knows my taste very, very well, we've been together for a very long time, he would keep looking over at me while he was reading it saying, "You would really hate this." I really trust his judgment on this one. If he doesn't think I will like it, then I likely won't. And since I'm not going to click with it, then I'm probably never going to read it. So there you have it. That is my list of books that I will probably never read. As I did say though, I might change my mind about a good number of them. Some of them I am kind of sitting on the fence, while other ones I'm really not interested in reading. But if you have read any of these books and you really feel as though I'm not giving them a fair shake, please leave it in the comment section down below. As I've said, I try to be really open-minded. I'm not saying there's no chance I will ever pick any one of these books up. I'm just saying it has never seemed like a good idea to me. But if you can give me some good reasons as to why I should change my mind about any of these books, I will definitely take it under consideration. You can put any of those thoughts or anything else you'd like to talk about down in the comment section below, or if you'd like to chat somewhere other than YouTube, I am on a variety of different places on social media. The links to all of my profiles are linked in the description box below. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.